Imagine you are in the king's grand courtroom. King Adonis sits on the throne with all the knights and ladies looking up at him. This is the mighty king. Just for a second, literally think about how much power kings used to have. They control the fate of the entire kingdom. They could go to war. And so you look upon King Adonis and you notice one thing, the way that he breathes. He breathes fully, so fully in fact that his stomach bulges in and out like mighty bellows. But he isn't self-conscious about his stomach looking fat. Jeffrey is the court gesture, the fool that everyone laughs at, and you notice the way that Jeffrey breathes. He breathes so shallowly, like he's anxious or nervous, holding in his breath because he doesn't realize he's holding in his power. I've recommended the same book about 15 times so far. If you haven't gotten it yet, you need to get this book and read it. It will literally transform your life. It's called The Way of the Superior Man by David Dida. There's a chapter in this book which I constantly go back to refresh it in my memory, and it's all about the proper way to breathe. This chapter starts by saying that most men hold in their power. Most men have like knots and blocks at the front of their body. Most men, when you literally see them, they're always kind of like weirdly hunched over. Imagine how Jeffrey would brush his teeth. Do you think he'd be like stood there confidently, shoulders? No, he wouldn't. He'll have like one hand leaning over the sink. He looks like he's going through some shit. His shoulders hunched over, his chest tightened up. Most guys are so tight around the front. What we need to do is the exact opposite. We need to follow Jordan Peterson's advice of stand up straight and bring your shoulders back. I know this seems like a weird video, like, oh yeah, well, breathe properly. That's kind of like a meditation thing, but this isn't about meditation. This is like far more important than that. And I say meditation is one of the most important things you can do, because the way that you breathe, not only in your meditation session, but as you navigate the world, determines so much of your life. You don't even realize how important this is. So in this book that I mentioned, The Way of the Superior Man, in this chapter about breathing properly, something he says literally just blows my mind, where he says, okay, when you're in a situation with your woman, she will notice your breath. And so when she challenges you, because we kind of understand, okay, women will challenge you, women will test you. They don't do this consciously. Subconsciously, women evaluate everything you do to determine what kind of man you are. In the chapter of this book, the author mentions that the way that you breathe will be noticed, especially by women around you. He says that when a woman challenges you and she tests you, she's paying attention to like minute details, and she is not consciously aware that she's really doing this. It's just some kind of like subconscious process. And so the example that he gives is that she will challenge you and notice your shortness of breath as a sign of weakness. See, Sam doesn't breathe like a king. He breathes like a little bitch. I can feel the knot in his stomach. I think Nabil breathes like a little bitch. Yeah, see, they've got tightness in their stomach. You can literally see the line of sight. Breathe into your stomach, bro. Yeah, all the way down. Breathe into your balls. You really feel it. Sometimes I'm like AFK, I'm not present, and then I remember this concept and I literally feel like a block being opened in my stomach, and I'm like, oh fuck, now I feel like I'm like alive. I'm just AFK half the time. So this is how you breathe like a king, right? And visualize the king at the top of the throne and everyone's looking at him. He's not shy. He's not like flexing his abs, is he? He's not insecure. He's not like doing that thing where, you know, you walk in and you're like pretending not to tense, but you are tensing, so hopefully the girls notice. He's not doing that shit. He is so utterly relaxed because he doesn't have any need to be insecure. So imagine a king with like a fat stomach because he's well fed, and it literally bulges out and he doesn't give a fuck. In, out. Even when he's challenged, even when like the gesture makes fun of him, even when like a knight starts getting like too rude, deep breaths all the way in, all the way out, because everyone would notice. And when he is challenged, like, you know, subconsciously, imagine everyone realizing, oh wait, he's actually a little bitch, because they see him like now he's holding his breath when like he's been challenged by like a lowly knight. You keep the same deep breath as much as possible throughout the day. And I would say, like, I've kept this in mind for a while. I would say maybe about 99% of my day, I'm not breathing like a king, and the 1% that I am is like literally like a 0 to 100 difference in my life. When I remember this stuff, especially related to women and interacting with other guys, it's literally like I have that sort of king power inside of me where I'm taken seriously. My voice automatically gets deeper. My presence in the room is like acknowledged tenfold compared to normal when you walk in and you've got like hunched over shoulders. I started at the beginning telling them, okay, visualize how like Jeffrey would brush his teeth, and I described how you brush your teeth, which is like you're AFK, you like lean over the counter, your body's all blocked up, you're like shoulders are hunched over and shit. I was like, god damn, this guy's going through some shit, bro. Like, the way he brushes his teeth is literally like he's got depression, bro. Man's like they just like hunched over and shit. Like, god damn, like fucking bring this shit back, bro. Like a king, bro. So the reason why I brought my friends here to talk about this is because we've all read the same book in the same chapter, and it really seems to like resonate with young men when you read that chapter. You still remember it?
I can't read, bro.
Yeah, of course.
I pretended to read it. I know, but we just walk around, literally like walking around doing shit, and like every now and then, as soon as it springs into one of our minds, we just go to each other like a king, boys, and then
You read the book a while ago, The Way of the Superior.
I read it a couple months ago, yeah. It's a great book. One advice I would say with breathing, it's definitely something to keep in mind, just the cue of like breathe like a king, that's useful. One thing you could do as well is something called box breathing, which is 4 seconds inhaling, 4 seconds holding your breath, and then 4 seconds exhaling. So it's like getting you, like if you're not used to being conscious about your breath, if you time it, it's easier to do that. So breathe like a king, that's super important, but also like time your inhale and exhale, and that makes it easier.
That's decent. Yeah. I'd say with this advice of like breathing like a king, it's not so much the time that we're focused on. It's the biggest thing that I'm focused on is just allowing my stomach to sort of bulge out and bulge in. But then I've done box breathing. There's a meditative kind of breathing with a certain tempo, which is I believe 4 seconds in, 6 seconds hold, 7 seconds out. And the way that you breathe, like, you know how there's like so many different like breathing exercises, there's the Wim Hof method, there's the box exercise, all of these ones, and there's literally people who can breathe in a certain way so that they can't feel cold or pain. There's literally people who can breathe in a certain way to release and recover from trauma. Like, isn't this interesting as fuck? The way that you breathe, it's something that we do. Like, we're all AFK, we're all away from keyboard IRL. Like, we navigate through life without ever thinking, okay, how can I level up my breathing skill? Like, everything that I suggest to you in terms of self-improvement, consider everything as like a skill in a video game. And chances are, whatever we're talking about, we don't have that high of a skill because we haven't been leveling it up. We've fucking leveled up strength on RuneScape instead of leveling up breathing. And you might have only realized today that breathing is a skill that you could actually level up, and that you probably have a low level in this. Your presence in the room that you're in, your impact on the people around you is going to be significantly less if you're breathing like a coward, if you're breathing like a Jeffrey, if you've got shallow breaths. And I know this seems like, overblown, like, oh yeah, if I take a bit deeper breath. Bro, try it. Try next time you're in a social setting and breathe like a king, and just notice like almost this laid back energy that you have. And of course, the idea of like, you know, thinking about the king and visualizing yourself as a king is also going to help this. But this is like weird stuff, which I feel like the majority of people never speak about, because online, all you see is like, oh yeah, like, you know, fitness stuff and make money, how to get girls. But this is like one of those weird pieces of advice that could literally change the rest of your life. Notice and stay aware of how you breathe. It's extremely powerful. I wouldn't make this video if I didn't believe so. And what I told you before is actually the truth. I literally think that I breathe not like a king, like I breathe like a coward, like a normal person 99% of the time. It used to be 100%. The 1% difference, like literally maybe 2-3 minutes of the entire day, if even that, is like, it's very different. I experienced this yesterday. I was in a cafe with Nabil. I'm just kind of normal. I'm not thinking of anything. I'm on my laptop, like uploading files, you know, just like being in a cafe, and obviously there's people around, not thinking anything of it. Nabil's just about to go, and he says like, oh, I challenge you to go and approach a girl, you know, like cold approach a girl in here first before you leave. And I'm on the fucking channel. I literally, as he says that he's about to leave, right, I stand up and literally go straight up to a girl, and I notice she has the book Atomic Habits by James Clear on her table. So I literally just go up and say, oh, Atomic Habits, and she's like, oh, you know, you have like a conversation. I'm like, oh, what have you learned from it and everything. But just before I did that, it's starting to get into the habit of breathing deeply. I really made sure to breathe into my stomach just before, and it's like I came over, you know, sometimes like if you go speak to someone new, you go speak to a girl or a guy, and sometimes you have like almost two personalities. One of them is like the ultimate version of you, which is like present and like powerful and like so charismatic, and like people resonate with you, and the other one is like people think you're kind of weird, you're disturbing them and stuff. Bro, it's like I was able to tap in on command to the good version of me, like the impressive version of me. I went up with like a deep voice, like a slow deep voice, presence, charisma. I'm noticing people around me look at me, because, you know, it's a kind of a strange thing to go like approach and just speak to a random girl in the cafe, and she's resonating with me like a lot, bro. She's like fully like happy to speak to me and everything, and she's asking me, you know, how do I know about the book? I know it off heart because she briefly mentioned, I asked her what she learned from the book, and she said, oh yeah, like, you know, don't set goals, and she kind of stops there. And I said, oh, set systems. And she's like, oh my God, you can remember the book and everything. And everyone around is like, I'm noticing that people, you know, it's a kind of a socially weird thing to go approach in public, especially in some kind of like restaurant or cafe. And so of course I did break social bounds, and there's going to be some Jeffrey who comments like, Hamza, you disturbed her piece or some shit. But it's like, bro, I'm seeing her later today. And like, she looks like a very like good girl as well, which is quite interesting. But I did that. I felt awesome. I go back to my seat after like a few minutes of talking to her, and I noticed there's like a couple of guys looking at me. And I know this is getting off topic, topic. We're talking about breathing, but this was really important, right? I noticed there's a couple of guys looking at me, and I noticed that I have been those guys before. I have been those guys that have almost been a little bit like subtly made to feel inferior, insecure, jealous, impressed. When you see like another man like approach a woman, or you see another man like get like a really good woman, you know, you've been that guy before. And so it was a very interesting dynamic, because there's this one guy sat straight opposite me, like 5-10 meters away, and I just kept on noticing him looking at me. But after I had that wonderful experience with this girl, you know, I felt like proper powerful and social, and like, oh yeah, you know, like I just approached a girl, I got her Instagram and everything. I'm sat back with that energy of like, okay, I'm breathing like a king deeply. I'm like, the way that I navigated the next sort of half an hour in the cafe was entirely different to the first half an hour that I was in there, because I started with that cue of, okay, breathe like a king. It was like, I felt like so like successful, high value, powerful. It was like everyone who was walking in was coming in and like looking at my eyes and then looking away, which you like, it sounds insignificant, it sounds like really silly to like be talking about, oh, you know, people looked at me, but that really does matter. And in your normal day-to-day life, sometimes it doesn't happen that often that like, you know, people will walk in, hold your eye contact, and I'm talking about like really attractive girls, like tall guys and everything, holding my eye contact, and then them looking away first. But I'm not doing it in some kind of like dickheady, like red pill, like, oh, be the alpha male, like, you know, look them in the eyes. I'm just naturally, but I became like laid back as fuck, and I'm literally just kind of like feeling, yep, like, it sounds cocky as fuck, bro. The thought I kind of had was like, yep, this is my cafe. This is where I am comfortable. And I started meditating as well, you know, I closed my eyes and everything, but I really focused on this new style of meditation that I've been doing that you might be interested in, which is essentially, I just set on a timer on, you know, the meditation app that you want to use. Sometimes they've got like guided meditations where the guy tells you, okay, you know, breathe like this. And then a lot of the meditation apps also have like a meditation timer. So I just set that one on for like 3 minutes. And my sort of instruction to myself is, okay, breathe like a king for 3 minutes. So I literally breathe like as deep. I want to give you like really, really practical, specific advice on how you breathe like a king. Essentially, we breathe always through your nose. In, out. What we want is when you breathe through your nose, all of your belly, like imagine, you know, with your abs. Let me try and show you. I don't know if you can see it from there, but about here. So imagine like about your belly button level and the bit below that, which usually kind of gets a bit bloated. So just below your belly button, you've got like another like 2-pack there that's hidden below like fat and stuff. And then you kind of have like the sort of the V taper down to your pelvis area. You want that lower stomach part to bulge. Imagine you're bloated. Imagine you're like a fat king who's letting it like hang out because you don't give a fuck. You want that bit to push out as you breathe in. It's almost like you're visualizing, like imagine the power in the air. This is like weird visualization stuff, but it truly works. Imagine there's like power in air and oxygen, and imagine you're bringing it all in through your nostrils and you're pushing it down to your stomach, and then literally feel like this tension being let go in your stomach. We carry so much tension down the front of our bodies, like so many blocks. And this book, The Way of the Superior Man, the way that it spoke about like these blocks that men have in the front of their stomachs was so interesting. It literally said your ability to penetrate the world and your woman will be lessened if you have these blocks down the front of your body. So it said, okay, open up your sternum, which is like your chest part here, by like bringing your shoulders back and sticking your chest out, your chin slightly upwards. Imagine like a clear sort of airway from the top of your nose going like down, like all the way down to your stomach. Push your stomach out. Allow it. Like, don't do this bullshit when you walk into the room and you're tensing up your stomach. You want to look lean or something. You're okay to have that little bulge of your stomach there. And I know what you're thinking. Okay, wait, but there is value to like, you know, sucking in your stomach so you look a little bit leaner. But I found the times when I haven't been like tensing my stomach, you know, my abs and stuff. And this is including times where I've worn like no buttons on like, you know, a button-up shirt, so my abs are visible. I found that I have like a greater level of attraction from people next to me when I allow myself to like breathe fully, rather than focusing on like, oh yeah, like, you know, tense your jawline, tense your arms before people look at you. Because what matters more than just, you know, like, oh, this guy's got like abs, oh, this guy's got like a bicep vein or something, is that you look totally and utterly relaxed and present. That you're not thinking about like, oh, but my stomach's a bit bloated. Oh, but if I hold my backpack like this, then I'll get a bicep pump. What matters way more is that you are present, and your presence fills the room. This is some important stuff. This is stuff that's like no one might have ever told you before. I learned this from a random book, and I really wanted to share this with you because I think this kind of advice, this kind of conversation is what I find like the most interesting. Like, tell me the most weird, practical, specific things that could impact your life in a significant way. You already know about weightlifting. You already know, oh yeah, well, build the aesthetic physique. You already know like, oh yeah, good body language and like reading and meditating. You already know those things. But it's like these weird mindsets that you can carry about in your day that will really change your life. Because, you know, the things that we do in our self-improvement habits are fantastic. Okay, go to the gym, meditate, go join a martial arts club. You don't do these things in like your timetable, your structured time, but you need like kind of mindsets, like a change in personality as you navigate everything that you do. And perhaps the single best one would be the way that you breathe, because that's always going to be consistent. That's always going to be a constant. You're always going to breathe for the rest of your life. The way that I just breathed then, it's very interesting, right? I'm making a video on how to breathe like a king, and I still literally just found myself not breathing like a king. I literally just like breathe. And when you really visualize it, when you really do it, you realize that you have like this like knot, this block in your stomach. Hopefully you felt that like a few times already in this video. You kind of like, you're thinking about it, so you do it and you're like, oh shit, yeah, I've got the block. And then within like 3 seconds, you've kind of forgotten about it. Then you do it again, because okay, do it right now, like do it right now. And you realize, oh shit, like I just forgot how to like breathe again. And so this is like your meditation practice. This is like the constant like reminder to have. It's so much better for you. Let's say you're about to navigate some kind of social situation. You're going into a restaurant. You're going to go speak to some people in school. It's so much better for you to be thinking, okay, like, you're going to have something in your mind to be thinking, okay, breathe like a king, breathe like a king. Then it is to be thinking like, I really hope Stacy likes me. I really hope that guy doesn't pick on me today. Those thoughts, like whatever you think about, really does actualize in your life. This video is getting like weirdly spiritual, but I promise you there's like real, I don't know the scientific shit. I'm like more of a bro science, but I promise you there's like real science, real like psychological reasons for why this is the case, that the way that you think, the thoughts that you have determine the rest of your life. I promise you it's the truth. Hopefully you already believe that. What could be better than thinking, okay, breathe like a king? Imagine what that visualization, that belief, that statement in your mind is gonna do to you. That's extremely powerful, because the way that we go about our usual lives, especially as like young men, bro, let's be honest, this is the truth for me, and I'm guessing it's probably gonna be the truth for you. The majority of our thoughts are quite negative, quite inferiority based, quite insecure thoughts. I wonder if that person likes me. I hope she messages me back. I hope those people think that I'm really muscular if I like, if I tense my stomach and I had, find a way to hold my bag. My brother really did this. That's the reason why I keep telling you about like, don't hold your bag like this to get a bicep pump. My brother used to do this all the time when he would go to university, and he would show me like showing off as well. He was like, oh yeah, this is how I hold my bag. So here. Instead of actually putting his backpack on like a normal person, he'd hold like this little handle bit, and he'd hold it like this. So he'd walk into his lecture like with a bicep pump like this, thinking like, oh, well, everyone's gonna notice he's got 16.5-inch arms, bro. No one gives a fuck. No one like the difference between being like unflexed and not thinking about the muscle that you've built compared to flexing and stuff. It's quite negligible. Like, of course, there's going to be a difference. You can see the muscular difference. But what are you sacrificing when you think about these things? Like for you, maybe you're about to enter into a room and you're really thinking about, okay, make sure my hair's okay. Make sure I'm mewing. All these things that you think about are taking presence away from the situation. So I'm not saying don't go to the gym. I'm not saying like, don't appreciate the muscle that you built. I'm not saying don't mew or anything like that. But there and then in the social situation, there and then as you navigate life, perhaps the single best thing that you can do is literally just keep saying these words into your mind. Breathe like a king. How would the king breathe? For me, I started this video saying King Adonis and stuff, and that's like a nice visualization for like us as the cult members. But I'll be totally honest, the king that I think of is, Robert Baratheon. It's like the Game of Thrones king at the start of the series. Game of Thrones is literally like the last TV show that I watched, and I'm pretty sure it's like 5 years old. But at the start of the series of Game of Thrones, maybe my editor will have like a picture of him right now. It's like the king who's friends with Ned Stark. He's like big fat guy. He's got like a big ass warhammer or something. It's the way I would imagine he would breathe, not giving a fuck. Like how would he sit down on his throne? Would he like sit there, shoulders hunched over, shallow breathing, like nervous? Are people gonna notice my hair? I didn't style it today. No, he's not. Sat back, shoulders back, chest out, stomach fucking bulging. Deep breath, no matter what's happening. His queen challenges him, deep breaths. The gesture that the court fool makes fun of him, deep breath. A knight challenges him, and a knight shouts at him and says like, this is unacceptable, deep breaths. Is that the case for you? What happens to your breathing? What happens to your fullness of breath when you're challenged by your parents? When your mother says, oh yeah, do you clean up your room or some shit? What happens to you when a girl holds eye contact with you and you start like sucking in your stomach somehow? It's just like a natural response, like, oh shit, like you get almost frozen. What happens when like a high value, like Chad looking motherfucker holds your eye contact and you feel the automatic evolutionary need to look away like a little bitch, and you get shortness of breath because of that? Why are we letting these people like take our breath away? And not in that sort of, you know, fairy tale, like, oh, they took my breath away. Not in that way. Hold your breath steady. It should be steady flowing. I ask you right now to just keep this in mind for the next couple of hours and maybe the next few days, or, you know, just for as long as you think it's beneficial. Navigate life, stay aware of your breath, and really pick up on the times that you notice that you're no longer breathing like a king. You notice that you've just went short in your breath, because it's so interesting. Because, you know, we can always talk about these things of like, oh, how to be more confident, how to get more girls, but it's so interesting to see, because it's such like a natural process that happens. Of course, right now we're almost forcing the thought about breathing, but generally like 99.9% of your life you're breathing automatically, aren't you? If you become aware of your breathing through things like meditation, through things just like constant reminders of, okay, breathe like a king, breathe like a king, it's such an interesting practice to see when you don't breathe like a king. It's so interesting. So I've been keeping this in mind more and more over like the last few months, and I remember I was in Amsterdam just about 2 weeks before I came here, so pretty much like a month ago from this date. I was in Amsterdam. I was with a couple of my editors. We were having like a really good time, and I remember this one particular guy who looked like a Chad light who walked past me, and I'm in this state of my life, like, you know, I was really focused on things like eye contact, so I held his eye contact up until he looked away. But then I noticed straight afterwards when he looked away, that's when my breath came back, and I literally like, I kept, obviously such a weirdly specific, like, oh, Hamza's still thinking about the Chad, but it's such a weirdly specific thing to keep in mind. But of course, you know, it's got some kind of like significance in my mind of, okay, that's like a Chad, he looked away from me, which means like I'm more of the dominant alpha male or some shit. But then I noticed, okay, I forced it, I faked it, because I held my breath whilst looking at him. I know that's so specific and stuff, but for some reason, like, you can find, like, you can relate to that. So really just keep in mind, when are the times that you don't breathe like a king? And ask yourself, like, you know, really clarify to yourself, like, why would I allow this person to have power over me next time? You know, set intention, set visualization, visualize yourself in the same situation next time with the same person, and then, you know what, next time I'm gonna be sure that when I hold eye contact with that girl again who took my breath away, I'm gonna breathe like a king. And in fact, I literally just did this. This was like, I wasn't planning to really tell this story, but this was somewhat awkward, and obviously we're like a while into the video. We're still recording, aren't we? We're like, I can't see how long, but I'm assuming we're like 20 minutes into the video, so most of the Spurgs have left, so it's just the boys. And so I've said on my second channel that I've been here within like the first week or so. I went out once and I hooked up with this one girl here. It was kind of like a regretful thing because it wasn't, you know, there was no level of emotional connection or anything. She wasn't necessarily like a bad girl, but I just didn't really like vibe with her like at all. And I saw her again. So me and my friends, we went to a Muay Thai fight just like the Saturday gone, like 1 week ago. And she just walks past. So she literally just walks past, and it, you know, I didn't message her back or anything after this, and so I didn't even like follow her, or no, we followed each other on the night, but then I went in and unfollowed her on Instagram as well. So it's a bit of like a little bit of all, like, I don't give a fuck in the sense of like, oh well, you know, I don't care, but like at the same time, you know, you're sat next to someone who you've just like been so intimate with. She's like literally 3 meters away. So I notice her, and then within like a few minutes I notice that she notices I'm there, and then she kind of like, you know, she goes for a walk or something, and then there's a time when, imagine I'm sat here, the ring of the Muay Thai fight is there, and she's kind of stood, you know, to the side of it, like a bunch of people are stood there to like, you know, stand closer to the ring and watch, and our eyes meet for the first time. And this, like, I usually wouldn't do this. I usually wouldn't like be at this level where I could, you know, it's not that, you know, this is such like, I don't want to tell these stories because it's like, oh, like, you know, it's 5 minutes of just telling, oh well, I held eye contact with a girl, please be proud of me. But it's just, I think it's so relatable that we talk about stories like this, even though it can come off as a bit like weird and like, you know, low value and insecure. Hamza's talking about eye contact, but it's so important, right? So she's over there, our eyes meet for the first time, and I literally had this thought, you know what, just a year ago I would have looked away. Do you know, there's a bit of awkward tension with a girl or a guy. It's so easy for you to like hold eye contact and like pretend like you didn't see them. It's so easy to, isn't it? But it was like, bro, I sat back, like I literally remember like fully breathing like a king during this, like the Muay Thai fight that I was watching, really focused on it, really like, you know, visualizing myself as a Muay Thai fighter and everything, feeling really confident. When our eyes meet, bro, I'm already kind of like sat back with my arms behind me, taking up space, and I'm just breathing deeply. And it was kind of awkward because like both of us just looked at each other. I was expecting her to look away like within a second. We looked at each other for at least like literally about 5 seconds, just like looking, and then I just go. So she almost like smirks a little bit, and she just keeps looking at me, bro. And I literally had the thought in my mind like, oh wait, I should look away, right? You know. But then I was like, no, like keep looking at her. Breathe. I know that that's such like a weirdly specific story. And of course, like, cause she looked away after that as well. But I know that's such a weirdly specific story. But imagine the difference of my own self-image and, you know, this random girl, like, there's no disrespect to her, but she's not important. And you know what I mean? That's so disrespectful. But like, there could have been someone who was really important to me. There could have been like, imagine the same situation, you know, your eyes lock to a guy that could have become your best friend, to a woman over there that you could have connected with really well, maybe your future wife. Imagine that situation, you're just going through some kind of social situation, you went to a Muay Thai fight, and there's a woman who you both quickly just make eye contact, and you just automatically you look away. And you know, it doesn't seem significant. Everyone's gonna make fun of us because we're being so serious about this. That could have literally been like a significant person in your life, and their first impression of you is that you're a little bitch. They don't consciously think that, but their first impression of you is that you are like the weaker person because you quickly looked away. Now let's say you managed to hold eye contact for like a second, 2 seconds, that's really nice. But then subconsciously she can see that you're tight in your body, that you're not breathing fully. That like, you know, you've like practically specifically like looked at her eyes, but then she can see that you're tight in your body, you're not breathing. When you can breathe like that under confrontation, under some kind of like tense scenario, maybe there's sexual tension, maybe there's some kind of like aggressive tension with a guy, and when you can literally just look them straight in the eye and breathe fully. Every single time, you know, you see me right now, like every 30 seconds, 1 minute of this video, I'm like purposely doing one of the breaths to show you. Every time I literally notice that there's like blocks there, which is very interesting. Like literally, I'm making this video right now. Automatically, as I'm speaking to you, I'm not breathing as I say these exact words right now, am I? Up until I go. One of the things that I really wanted to, I won't say that, like, you know, really wanted to improve on, because it's not something I've really kept in mind that much. But one of the things I have become more aware of is my breathing through these videos. It would be kind of annoying if I stopped like every few seconds to like do a full breath like this. But sometimes I do find myself constantly, you know, speaking to the camera with so much emotion and everything. And what do you think's happening when I'm speaking like this with no stops at all? I'm essentially just like holding in my breath, or you see that little sip of air that I'm doing. And that's gonna stop like my ability to sound like loud and powerful and resonating to you. And so for my own self-improvement, I should be on the camera, speaking to you in a slower manner, which allows me to take breaths like a king. I'm gonna bear that in mind. This was a very weird, specific video, but I really think it can help you if you just take it a little bit seriously and just keep saying those words in your mind. Breathe like a king. You can subscribe to our channel if you want to. Welcome to the cult. Do the hard work, especially when you don't feel like it.